A lot of people that I knew personally that were involved with a lot of these things I'm going to talk about, over the next couple months, it's gonna target. I'm going to be targeted. So I'm probably going to have to back off. This might even be the last one I do. So my purpose this morning is just to blow your mind, nothing else. Just want to blow your mind. The reason why is that we need to reset. We're going to need to reset mentally because starting today, actually this morning, stuff is going to be released. And you're going to hear about a lot of things in a lot of different areas, including even the 2020 election will be released this morning, the fraud. They had a meeting last night, cabinet meeting, and then this morning they're releasing stuff. So a lot of things are going to be exposed in that area and in a lot of other sectors, including the UFO sector. And these people have been working. A documentary is almost done. So a lot of these people have been working very hard, knowing that the president will release some of this information. So I need to explain a couple things to you. I have a friend here that, Gabe, you want to come up? And Gabe is, the Lord had chosen him. Go ahead and introduce yourself. You got the Lord had introduced him to me a couple years ago, and then last week when I was doing this research, I've been waiting over 20 years, almost 30 years. A lot of the things you're seeing here I've known for 30 years, but I wasn't allowed to talk about it because it was classified. But a lot of people have come forth under the protection of the government, which is an oxymoron, but the bottom line is a lot of people that I knew personally that were involved with a lot of these things I'm going to talk about, over the next couple months. It's gonna target. I'm going to be targeted. So I'm probably going to have to back off. This might even be the last one I do. It just depends upon how much I say that goes over the threshold where they start sweating. The problem is that it's your taxpayers' money. It's your money that they're spending on these things, and the way that they got them is not what they're saying. And I need to tell you how they got this stuff, is what I'm saying. But not only that, is that a lot of the stuff that's classified can be weaponized against its own people. So a lot of the technology is kept from us, and so what they do is they make it something that it's not. So there's a narrative, and so Gabe, just go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll just tell us a little bit about yourself. And the Lord, last week when I found this and uncovered this, I was so happy. I couldn't breathe. I was running around the house because I found all these documents that were not released, and somebody, when they passed away, they were released. So I grabbed them all, and so I've known about this for a long time, but was not able to get these things. These are all from deathbed confessions and drawings from people in the government that just said they can't do anything to me now. I'm given over to death within the next couple weeks. So they gave their confessions and drawings and information to an individual. And then he said, contact Gabe and let Gabe be the guy that I play ping pong with this morning. So Gabe, go ahead.
Well, I just 3 years ago was riding an electric skateboard, and without a helmet, of course, because who wears those? You know what I mean? And I hit the little bump in the middle of the road, flipped off, cracked my skull in half. I was in a coma for 18 days, and the hospital, of course, asked for the good old last will. And but November 12th, 2021, the Spirit of the Lord set me back, and I woke up, and I was miraculously healed and walked out of the hospital. Skull was healed. I have an MRI. No, seriously. I have MRI photos of like the before and after, and like the skull is like, and the doctors were like, we can't explain you. They made me sign a contract because they said they wanted no liability with my life. Seriously, so I just take every day on the Lord's credit, and I did become a nut for the Lord, and as anyone would, but I just love the Lord, and I'm thankful for Kevin. This man's a real man, and I'm thankful that the truth is being revealed in this hour. And it's funny that you'd call me because the Lord had led me through some pathways the past 2 or 3 weeks about some documents that were released too. So when Kevin contacted, I was like, oh my goodness, because it was like, but he didn't tell me anything. but the Lord was
and
speaking.
I purposely didn't tell him a thing.
He told me nothing.
I just said,
come.
show up Saturday morning. I want it to be cold turkey because I want to watch his reaction, because then you can also identify with this. If I don't do this morning and put this out to the world, what will happen is that people will be shocked. And I want to get rid of the shock factor because I want you to be able to have time to assimilate it. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to use Gabe as the person who's kind of moderate questions, cold turkey. I'm just going to let him flow. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk through this, and we're going to put this out. And then hopefully the intelligence agencies that are involved with this will just leave me alone. And that's why I have not talked about it for all these years, because I know both sides of this. And so I know how it works. But at this time, there's going to be a big reveal, and a lot of military people are coming forward. And so you're going to hear it anyway. But I'd rather you hear it from me first, from a biblical standpoint, so that you can kind of help process this. Because it's the whole idea of this reveal and the holding back until now is to shock you into trauma to where you aren't able to make decisions on your own. You're kind of being coerced through a certain narrative. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they're going to kind of push you, okay, this is what these are, and this is what's going on, and there is no God. These are your gods, and they seeded the earth, and you're part of a hybrid race. And they're going to say all this stuff, but individuals high up in the military have said, they've told me that this is not the case. These are from another dimension, and they've been on the earth a long time. They're not from another planet. So anyway, there we go. So anyway, you want to say anything? First of all, I guess the question I have for you is, because you have I think 1 million followers that are mostly youth, right? Do you have like 1 million followers on your YouTube?
Yeah, so a little more about myself. A couple years ago during COVID, I was laid off from my job, and I never did media. I thought it was demonic. And I said, social media is demonic. I'm not touching that. And I'm not watching TV. I'm not touching social media. But the Lord told me to get off my couch and just hit the button record on TikTok and YouTube, where I knew all the younger generation was. And I just started speaking the truth. And miraculously, Kevin, it reached souls. And now, 12-year-olds comment, I'm Muslim. Please do not tell my mom, but I can't stop watching these videos. And it's just the Lord, but it really is all ages now, and miraculously, and we've recorded 40,000 salvations of kids commenting, I'm 14 years old, I just gave my life to Christ. Please don't tell and then we have a how to pray in tongues video, and that's real where things really get. And it's all the, please, my dad's a Baptist, please do not, please. And so I just go in even more, Don't tell the parents, no.
Okay. So there you have it. So the Lord had called me when I started my Facebook. He told me to register and open an account, and he told me, I want you to own Facebook, is what he said. He said, I want you to take it for Jesus. And so I just post about Jesus 30 times a day. I built the thing by myself, staying up at night, and then I got other people to help me. I hired somebody to start my YouTube channel for me because I didn't. He's one of our first employees, and I said, he said, what do I do? And I said, well, YouTube's next. I'm going to own YouTube, so can you register me and help me open it up? And he goes, okay, so he watched a YouTube channel to learn how to open a YouTube channel and like how to. So like that's what thing I like about Andrew is when I talk to him, he's like our project manager. So we have projects that are 2 years from now that we're working on now. So everything you see has been for me and him have been working on for 2 years. And one thing about Andrew is so when I call him, he's already, you can already hear him typing and he's contacting people as I'm asking him to do it. He's like one of the most amazing employees because he just there's no wiggle room. He gets it done. He calls the engineers for the property and says, Kevin needs more gravel. Are you going to do it, or do I go to your competition, you know? And you're burning daylight, you know? You know what I'm saying? So Andrew opened that YouTube channel, and so then I realized a couple years ago that I need to do coffee talk, and I need to stop wearing a tie, and I need to become a captain, and then be a pilot, and then talk about aerodynamics, and then talk about these things that are happening in our skies and in our houses and around us, and people flipping out and acting weird and no real reason for it. The Lord says, you can help people understand this stuff. So let's get into this right now. Gabe, you know, we can, we're going to sit for, I want to stand for a minute because I have a couple of things. I want to show you something that happened to me back in 1988 and 89. I was working for Southwest Airlines, and one of the bosses for another department that I dealt with was ground ops. And so when our plane would come up in Phoenix, we were based there. So we had people that were high up in the departments for aviation, but they also were tied to dispatch, or there was all kinds of departments at an airline. So one of them was ground ops, and that has to do with the people that are around the airplane, supporting it, replenishing it, parking it, helping load and unload. And so we have what we call operation agents, and then we have people that are over the whole umbrella of that. So then you have the mechanics, and so I got to talk to mechanics, I got to talk to the pilots, I got to talk to ground ops. And one of my friends, he was a friend. We kind of started Phoenix together. Phoenix opened up, and I was like the second class that went there during the opening of it, and then he was sent there. So we were buddies. And we only had 29 airplanes, 89 airplanes, 29 cities at the time. And I was employee number, there were 8,900 employees. And so now there's over 100,000, and we'll go to 115 cities. It's really grown. But this guy, he pulled me aside one day, and he told me about this guy. It was his friend that he was hiding in his apartment. Bob Lazar. So I got this photo, he signed it, and my friend, who was this operations agent, was saying, I'm hiding him because he was out at a military base called Area 51 in S4, and he was reverse engineering a craft that they don't know how it really works. And he worked for the Navy, and he worked at Los Alamos, and they've erased everything. So they even erased it. He went to the high school he went to, but he has like the pay stubs and things like that. So anyway, I just got this. I've got a couple other things signed by him. The guy's the real thing. It ends up that they had erased that he had ever existed. Even his birth certificate was stolen out of his house. So what happened is he realized that people need to know about what he was working on. So that gets into, this has happened to me several times. So it has happened to me with that. It has happened to me with Roswell, where I had actual people that were part of the family that I know. And they've told me everything. And they've handled the stuff that was on their property that was not a weather balloon. They said even the cattle today will not go near these spots where it hit and where the bodies were. The animals won't go near it. Okay, so this is somebody in church, spirit-filled church. This guy's in tears telling me this. And so the same with my friend, who is one of my bosses, and he said, I'm hiding my friend. He said they actually pulled up beside the car, and I have a bullet hole in my car. They tried to kill him. Okay, so you understand me. So you can understand, like, with me, I'm like, I'm very fair. I don't like draw conclusions, but you got to remember, when I was in heaven, I was shown in a flash all the conspiracy theories, and they were all true. Just so you know, I was shown, and I didn't want to come back. It was a flash with Jesus. I looked back at the earth as I was standing with him. And in a flash, I saw about JFK. I saw about everything you can name, and I knew what had happened, that we had killed him. that the government had done it. Okay, so that just comes out last week. That LBJ gave the kill, and then George W. Bush was the CIA director, and it was the CIA and the mob that did it. And I even know the names of the people that were involved, and you can too if you look through the thousands of pages. But my point is this, is that I saw when I was in heaven that the control behind the scenes was a lot greater than what the church was aware of. That was my point, right? So I thought, well, what do? We just, so being part of the Assemblies of God and then the Word of Faith movement, I thought, well, we just, the Assemblies of God, their favorite song was Hold On Until He Comes. And then the Word of Faith was get rid of the mountain, speak to it and get rid of it, And so I'm like, well, which is it, And I mean, so I was like, but each group seems to know, wants to deal with it in a different way, right? And then all your friends, you talk to all your friends about this stuff, and each one deals a certain way. Except for the fact if they have seen something or had something happen to them, then all of a sudden it changes. Everything changes because like, no, I saw one. I had this happen. And so I brought Gabe because Gabe understands the mentality of teenagers and the kids. And see, that's the ones I'm concerned about. You guys, if I give you enough information, you can process it on your own, and I'm fine with that. You guys are smart. I really credit you as being smarter than even the government thinks you are. Right? You know what I'm saying? In other words, you all are very smart. But with the kids are like, I just want the real thing, and I want it to work. So kids, they just say, I just want the real thing. They want, if God is real, they want to experience Him. They don't want to hear about Him. They want to experience God. They want God to interact with them and help. Okay, but do they have that support system in most homes? I didn't. My parents did the best that they could do. And my dad, before he died, he apologized. He said, because we did everything we could do, but it wasn't enough, and we're sorry. And he passed away. But at least he repented and apologized about it. He said, I am sorry I was so hard on you. That's how my dad was. And I'm thinking, okay, and so that was the last conversation I had with my dad, and he's in heaven. But the thing of it is that, okay, but if I have the Assemblies of God look at it, well, we'll just hold on till He comes. That's neutral at best, right? Okay, so kids are like, well, what can we do? Like, I want to know the truth. So what happened was I found people that told me the truth they shouldn't have, and they got in trouble. Some of them got in trouble for talking to me. And I was told to back down or that I would disappear. And I was told that. I said, the stuff that they kill people for. And these were military people who said, you should know this stuff. And who told you this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember what the question was. Can you rephrase it? Let's go eat. So kids these days, they're just, I think they're tired of fake. Okay, so if something happened in Roswell, then it happened. So all the questions that we should have are, as Christians, where does this all fit in? Okay, but the thing of it is how many know that the devil doesn't look like the drawings? And he doesn't even have a pitchfork. I mean, the mermaid on your cup does.
Yeah, right.
Well, what's a mermaid? I've seen photos from military of creatures that were mermaids coming up to the boat while they were on a military. So it wasn't nice looking. It wasn't Shamu. It wasn't Barney the dinosaur. It was something hideous. It was scary. I've seen multiple films. I've talked to people. Okay, so what is the mentality of kids coming up? Would it be better to just show them the data and let them make decisions on their own? Or are we wrong in thinking that, they don't need to know that, they don't need to be exposed to that? It's like hiding things from kids. It doesn't really work.
Yeah,
right?
Go ahead and try.
Yeah,
Type,
because
you know.
they're real inquisitive, right?
Kids are smarter than we realize.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a king and a beggar in each person we speak to, and we pull out either one. And concerning kids, what we believe of the kid and what we give them the allowance for them to hear is what they'll be able to receive. And you guys would be shocked what kids can receive in 2025. And so I believe the Lord has sent, especially Gen Z, but then Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha are answers to our prayers. I'm telling you, and we need to change the way we speak about this next generation. I hate to break it to you, but God could be answering your prayers with the kids of this next generation. They could be the hope to the country. There could be a boomerang where, of course, we're living in the end times, but the church is the only force that holds back the Antichrist. You guys hearing me right now? So Kevin, there's a very strong group of kids that are tired of the fake, and they are demanding the truth, and they're going to find out. You know. Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna show a bunch of things, and do a little bit of talking, and we're gonna have a discussion again here in a couple minutes. You can go ahead and grab a seat or whatever. I got to show some stuff, but we're gonna have a discussion in a little bit after I show you. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna explain everything. If you want to stay up here with me, you can. That'd be great. You know, I'm just gonna go through these different things. I guess unless you want to sit down, so it's fine with me. All right. So what happens is this guy William McDonald. He was military, he was a Marine, and he was an investigator as well. And he ended up working in detention center in Florence in his retirement, but he was military, trained military. So he was intelligence, and he was connected with a couple other people that were in the intelligence field. So we're talking with where the Marines work with the CIA and different intelligence agencies to gather information. So you can stay. You explain it, is that this guy here, Leonard Stringfield, you never heard of him, and I never had heard of him, but he was an intelligence officer that literally gathered all the information on downed craft that we didn't know who they were from. And so he has manuals that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars on Amazon because the government has taken everything off. So I was able to find a couple of different books that are gone, but they were expensive, but I grabbed them. And this guy was completely turned counterintelligence, which means now that he has gathered all this information, he has to lie. He has to literally change the narrative because of his job, right? But he gathered information, and he gave this guy, William McDonald, a call before he passed. And so they spent a month or two on the phone, and he explained everything that really went on. Gave them all the names of the people that he had interviewed on the government side, which would never be released, right? So he gives out all the names. And so you can watch all these videos on YouTube because they came up. And I don't know how long they'll stay up. But the information of the Marine being an investigator and gathering information, he was able to go to 28 people that were at Roswell that worked on all this when it happened, and interview them all. And that's where you get everything you got here is based on this guy interviewing deathbed confessions of military people. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so 28 people collaborated this whole storyline and narrowed it down to 8 people out of the 28, which if you talk to a cop, that's pretty good. If 28 people witness something, if you can get 8 people to agree on the same thing, even though all 28 people were there, it's bizarre trying to get to the bottom of something. So if you get 8 people that exactly corroborate everything, he did that. Now, he just passed away. So the reason I got all these is because I could never find these things. This was all based on the fact that I knew somebody who was part of the family on the ranch where these things hit. And they told me what really happened, how they were threatened, and how they took bodies away, and that this wasn't a weather balloon. These were ships. These were craft. And they weren't round discs either. Because there was kind of confusion, because there was a couple of different sites that came up at the same time. It ends up that they're all the same incident. And there was portions of things that hit were in different areas. So one was in Corona, one was northwest of Roswell. And so you trace all the names, and you get like 100 people, and you narrow it down to 28, and then you narrow it down to 8. That's the kind of the backstory of this, if you didn't want to spend your time investigating like I have for 2 weeks and for years, to try to get to the bottom of this. Now, the reason I'm doing this is that we as spiritual people, we call ourselves spiritual people, right? But we also have a mind, we have emotions, we go to work, we deal with things, we deal with discrepancies. So what we intend, like we work really hard because we want to buy a new car. But during the year, we're doing everything right, but the refrigerator goes out. And then your kid decides he wants to go to an expensive school rather than the one that was a freebie. Take the scholarship, buddy, No, I want to, So what happens is there's discrepancy. So you're on a track, and then all of a sudden things happen, and those discrepancies, you as a spiritual person want to know, okay, why did this happen? Because you're trying to figure out, like, where do I fit in all this? What could I have done, right? We just want to be, so we're saying, is this God's fault? Like some people say, was it God's fault? Did he let this happen? It's like, well, if you talk to Job, it's never God's fault, right? Bless you. So when I talk to people and they tell me, no, I was there, this is what happens, and like my buddy in Arizona with Bob Lazar, he was like hiding him, and he explained everything to me. In fact, he told me more than Bob Lazar has ever said. So I'm waiting for the other 50%, and I know it, and I know, like, I can't say it because he hasn't said it. And why does he not say it, and why do I know it? And why does this friend come to me and say, I don't know what to do, and I'm afraid? And so I said, well, what did he say? So he drew a bunch of things for me and shows how everything works. And it's all this physics that's classified. So I understand all that physics, but I only understand it because I have it on napkins that were drawn by this person who went on radio and TV immediately. As you know, Bob Lazar went out everywhere so that they couldn't kill him. So he went to George Knapp and went to Las Vegas and then broadcast. So everything he says ends up being right. He even told us things that were on the periodical chart, nuclear material, atomic material, up into the, we had 103 at the time on the atomic chart. He was talking about 115, which couldn't even be in this atmosphere because the electrons that it had around it were 16, 32. I don't know how much higher it was than that, but it's element 115, Moscovium. And everybody's like, this guy's a lunatic. And now if you look on the atomic chart, 115 Moscovian is on the chart. But it's classified. So he was telling the truth. Okay, so when this happens, like our generation's like, okay, wait a minute. If this guy was saying this when it didn't exist and now it exists, what else is he saying that's true? Because he's saying that he worked, there was 9 of them, craft up there. He worked on the sport model, which is this one right here. He actually had this made, and I got it. So this is the one he worked on. It's called the sport model, and he only worked on the propulsion system. So he explained the propulsion system, which I understand how it works. But the thing of it is most people right now in this room don't maybe even believe this way, which is, your choice, right? But I understand the propulsion system because I've actually watched them fly. I've seen them in broad daylight. And so I know people that have worked on them. Okay, so I'm not here to prove if this exists or not exists. What I'm saying is like in this generation, I call it the revealed generation, because we're going to be, there are a lot of things that have been hidden from us for many, many years. Some of it, thousands of years, is going to be revealed. But the narrative that it's going to be released with is going to be deceiving. And that is from the mouth of somebody at the top in the Pentagon that has said that to me. And there is others that I have not met that have said it, that are even higher than that. So how do you deal with this stuff in your church? This morning, they're just releasing the documents to show that the election was stolen, and they have all the data. They're releasing it this morning. Okay, no, wait a minute. How many people in the church were like wondering, like, well, why didn't Trump get in? Because in their mind, like, God wanted him in and he didn't get in. So what happened? So were people wrong because they said that he was supposed to be in? Okay, see, because our theology is wrong about God's will, because it's conditional. Because Paul said to Timothy, you know those prophecies I gave you? Well, obviously they hadn't come to pass yet, because he said, wage war. Take those prophecies and wage war with them. Well, why would he have to do that if it was in stone and that's what God wants? When Paul said it over him, why hadn't it happened? Because it was conditional. Timothy had to do it. So this morning, we have to give all of you, this generation, the children, we got to give them the information that's the truth, even at the church level. Because there are church people, there are ministers that you know who have contacted me and said, Kevin, I was at this tent meeting helping so-and-so, and you would know who it is. And when I got home, this craft was over my house, and took a picture of it and said, what is this? And I don't get bothered very easily, but I didn't want to get involved, because I knew what that was. And all I wanted to do is type to her, run. But I didn't do anything. And she's gone. She's disappeared. She's not on Facebook anymore. I didn't do anything, because the craft that I saw, I knew that was part of a government project. But it looks like it's an alien ship. And I thought, well, how many people really, like when they encounter a being, how many people think that's something that it's not, even though it's there? But we all want to label it. So at a church level, we try to process, okay, why do these things happen, and why are they not prevented? Why is it that God could say something and then it not happen? And then we find out that everybody was cheating, and God didn't step in and stop the cheating. And so then we have to reevaluate, well, how does God interact with us? And that is that Jesus responded to people's faith, right? So he wanted you to take a step toward him, right? And then he gave you more. But if you didn't take a step forward, he said, well, it hasn't been given to them, it's been given to you. Remember when he said that? The parable of the sower? They didn't understand, so they pulled him aside. Can you go over this again? You know, I was texting on my phone. Peter was texting on his phone. Like I missed it. So he explains it, and the lights went on, right? Just like this morning, the lights are going to go on. And when the lights went on, their reaction was this: why didn't you go out and tell the world? Okay, do you realize that he had just done that? Right? He had just preached to the crowd, pulled them aside, and Jesus went over it again. And if you read what he said out there and what he said to them, it was really the same thing, except he went into a little bit greater detail, right? But he did that to them because it's what they needed, and then he restricted the public from knowing. He didn't go back out to the public again. He said it wasn't given to them, it was given to you. Why would he do that? I've had that told to me by government officials, that people aren't ready for this. I was told by a high-ranking person who actually was designing the weapons to take these things down, and they gave up. He said we were using F-15s. He said they would know that we were targeting them and slide 60 miles across the sky out of the range of the radar and the tracking. So there was a clip on the tracking and also the targeting. So you had to bring the nose of the aircraft to a certain area. So now we have better stuff that we can do probably 360. But at the time, these things knew. He said, we gave up. We could not shoot them down. They seemed to know what we were doing before we would do it. That's from a high-ranking person that I was friends with. And then this comment was made. He grabbed me by the arm and he said, a general said to him, only God can bring these things down. Right? Okay, so to the youth, they were like, okay, then we'll go to God, right? So they can make the transition, right? Whereas adults, we're like, well, where does this fit into the Assemblies of God doctrine? You know what I mean? You're like, and I just see, I'm not picking on them. I love them. I love everybody. But the bottom line is that I don't like it when I feel like I'm on fly tape. I'm stuck. You know, I'm trapped. You know, I don't want to get into the fly tape. I don't want to get into the ant trap. I'm not an ant. I'm not a fly. I'm a human being, and I'm being guided by the Spirit, which means I have a purpose, which means I always win. In every situation. So, have you had an experience where you've seen something? Could you talk about that for a minute? And then I'm going to go through this. How did you process?
So,
because you're a Christian.
You know, Kevin, it wasn't until I'll just be upfront. It wasn't until my accident that I ever took any of these things seriously. And I used to always, laugh and roll my eyes at anyone that talked about any of these things. Until my accident, and when the Lord sent me back to my body, I woke up on the 7th floor of the hospital, which was where they rolled everyone out. And I immediately looked around, and that night, as I would walk around, because I was recovering, I would walk around, and as I would walk past each room, there'd be people chained in that level of the hospital because it was a mental ward. And it was the word that they were about to roll them out as dead. But they'd be chained, and they would wake up at 2, 3 a.m. and scream at the top of their lungs. And it was like, it would just be like, oh, there's another one, And you just keep walking, because I'm just trying to get some steps in, you know what I mean? But it wasn't a normal walk, you know what I mean? And I told my parents, I said, get me out of this hospital. Because they were preparing, a rehab place, and then this, and then they were saying, oh, we got to wait 2 weeks, you got to pass all the tests. And I was passing everything, but it kept delaying, and I said, you've got to get me out here. I cannot recover in this place. But so that was one of my first experiences, but I've had time after time, even just since then, that, one time I was visiting my now wife, and she lived in Alabama, and I was visiting her on a date, and it was like 1 a.m., and I get a call on the hotel phone. And all of a sudden, it's a guy that was in the Army, and he said, I'm going to take your life. It was just from the hotel phone, Kevin.
Oh, I know. No,
Here I was just...
this is not new to me.
And it was like, and I was just on my way to surprise her and go on a date, and I was just me alone in the hotel room and just getting a call at 1 a.m. And so it was just crazy things. But I also had another buddy. His name is Chase. He didn't believe in God at all. He was in a golf course. This was years ago. He was telling me this story. In a golf course, riding a little golf cart, just riding along, no one out there. He looks to his right, it's like 50 feet to the right, and he saw this, like he said, 10-foot tall white creature that he said completely paralyzed his body. And he said he didn't believe in any spirits, anything. He immediately was shook with the greatest fear, and he ran for his life. He got out of the golf cart and ran for his life. And so he's telling me about this, and he's like, explain this. I don't understand. Like, he's saying, I know the spiritual world is real, but I don't understand it. And I think that's actually where a lot of young people are right now. And it's actually the perfect opportunity for us to actually share the gospel is our presence in the midst of young people and just the worldly people should demand an explanation that we should have an answer for. You guys, and so, but I was telling him the gospel. He's like, oh my goodness, and telling him about the Nephilim and telling him about the inner breeds. And
right.
And he's coming to Christ now. And he's like, wow, tell me more about that. The Bible says that?
Yeah.
They're like, wait, let me see the Bible now, so. It really is an
That's good.
opportunity.
Okay, so this right here is technology, but it's on a lower level. But you can use this for all the different levels of physics. So this is a light bulb. It's levitating, and it's also energized wirelessly as well. So it's just floating on that platform. And then so this is happening, and I bought this on Amazon. Okay, so what do you think they have in a hangar at Lockheed?
We'll have them see it too.
Yeah. So then you got, yeah, I can do it over here.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So then the same technology on Amazon, you can buy a UFO that's floating, and not only that, I can hook up wirelessly and put music. It's a speaker as well. So I can transmit, but this is floating on air. And so is this. Okay. So you can buy this on Amazon, and we just look at that, and we can't explain it. But see, this is all physics, and what it has to do with is there's things going on that you can't see, but there's different levels of this. So this is more on the magnetic side of it, but there's also electromagnetic, there's also gravitic. And when you get into gravity and canceling gravity out, you can own the world if you can cancel gravity, which they have done. Okay, it's free though, it's free energy. It doesn't, there's no release of heat because there is no accumulation. So it's a perfect form of energy because you actually lose some energy to heat, and you don't with these systems. Okay, so usually people that are in classified projects have to leave now, so I understand if you have to leave. Because a lot of people cannot be even in the room when I start talking about stuff like this. And I have compassion for you, but I got to let this stuff out. And this might be the last time I do it. But the reason why I say this is because as Christians, we don't look into science because, that's not, just like we don't look into government because that's not of God. It's like, well, then all of a sudden it's of God now because it's working your way. Okay, so what if this starts working your way where you never have to stop for gas again? And not only that, I can transfer electricity to your house from my house wirelessly. Well, Nikola Tesla said he could do it, and then all of a sudden he's out of the picture, poof, and all his books are missing. Okay, so this is interesting because this one, look at this, this will float, but I also, whatever position I put it in, it holds that position. So, of course, it's not going to behave now because it's a UFO and it doesn't like me. But anyway, I just bought this. It's the first time I've even messed with this. But the bottom line is that this one is set up as a UFO, but it operates. Maybe somebody with more patience can come up here and help me. Okay, so if I tilt it, see, it knows who the boss is. Okay, so I know that a lot of people can't see this, but when you tilt this, it stays at that tilt. It'll still spin. It will not change its bank. So this is how the UFOs work, but in a different way. So this is technology that exists. So my problem is, I bought all the books of all these people up here. They have things out that have been taken since they joined the intelligence agencies, but they had books out. And then, so they were the guys they grabbed, the physicists and everybody that they grabbed and developed all these projects, and with your tax dollars. But then they're not released for public consumption, though. But you can buy this on Amazon. But the thing of it is just look at this. You could stare at this for a while, and it's really amazing. Like, you're looking at this happening, but you're saying, okay, I don't understand this, but there it is, right? Okay, so what if that happens in your backyard or beside your airplane? Then what do you do? Hey, Mike, can you go pull the photograph out of what happened beside my airplane? Those shots. This is no one else has this. I actually have. We were in a Gulf Stream 4 or 5. I don't know which one it was at the time. I say it on purpose because I don't want them tracking it. But a object, a disc, came right underneath us and did a right angle turn beside me, and we got a picture of it. At over 1,000 miles an hour, did a right angle turn, and it's a disc right beside us. And our radar didn't pick it up. Our TCAS systems didn't pick it up. The controllers didn't pick it up. No air traffic controllers picked it up. But yet, my staff took pictures of it. So let's see how we do this. You want to be show and tell today? Okay. All right. So let's see how we build this. Yes. What's the other one? Yeah. Okay. All right. So this one here, if you can just show everybody. So what happened is we're coming in over Boise, Idaho, into Washington State to land in Seattle, and I was on a descent. It was just a couple thousand feet a minute. We were going about 450 to 500 miles an hour, and this thing went right underneath us, and then did a right angle turn right here. And then this is actually just a vortice that it created as it started to accelerate to where it disappeared. It went so fast it disappeared, but it was still going. Can everybody see this? Okay, so this is us coming in. So the Gulfstream is a very big, sophisticated aircraft, and it went right underneath us and shot like this, and it happened just like this. This thing came in at 1,000 miles an hour and did a right angle turn. Okay, so what it left was the vortices of the air being disturbed, and that is not a normal aircraft. That's something you'll see in the air, that vortice like that. Those are shock waves of it going through Mach numbers. Okay, so here is a blow up of that portion of it as it accelerated. So you can come up and look at this on the break. But my bottom line is that I went ahead and blew up the, do we have the one that, there's another one. Okay, so here, welcome to church. Okay, so this happened to me. All right, so here is the disc. So it did a right angle turn, which is impossible. That's 90 degrees at 1,000 miles an hour, accelerated to where there it was, like there's the disc. So I got that blown up because I figured most of you need even more help. So here's the last Mach number it went through before it accelerated into invisible. There's the disc, and this was the last Mach number. But these are just in a couple hundred yards, blowing through Mach numbers. So an aircraft to break the speed of sound, it takes a little bit of time. The first one's the hardest, but then after that, they come pretty quick if you have that aircraft. All right, so can you see this? All right. Okay, so this one was taken from 45,000 feet. So you can see the wingtip of the airplane. And this, is Elon Musk. Okay, so that's what a rocket looks like that's going a couple thousand miles an hour. Okay, but look at that. And that thing, it looks kind of slow, but we're at 8 miles up, and that thing is going it's almost in space by this time. But it came by the aircraft as we were flying. So, all right, see that? Okay, so that's explainable, right? But what I just showed you, you have the one of the craft that has no wings, and it blew through all these Mach numbers. And then disappeared. So it went bang, 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 and then it's still going, but you can't see it anymore. Okay, so this happened to me. And none of the technology on the aircraft, which we go overseas, on that airplane. Well, I've been on that airplane where you sit for 10 hours flying. And something that this was doing this on purpose. to play with us. So how does something do that, number one? Why are the pilots still alive inside after doing that? And what kind of technology is that? So what are the occupants? What is the technology? And why were they mocking us? Because it was staged. They literally purposely went under us and then shot beside me so we could get the picture. Okay, so this happened. This is not like my friend. This is like our staff. This is the airplane that we were leasing. And we were doing this as a trial run on that airplane so we could take it overseas. So we were doing this flight as a trial run, and then this happened. And yet people will say, well, you know, we don't need to be focusing on UFOs and on the devil. And the thing of it is, though, is that do you know how many times things have flown by the airplane that didn't have wings, and when I report them, there's nobody up there? I'm like, what do you mean there's nobody up there? It just came by us, and it didn't have wings. Like, would you like to report it? I go, I just did. Do you want the coordinates? Do you want the altitude? And the only reason I was reporting it was because there was an American airline aircraft behind us that was reporting in on the same path, you know, on the same highway in the sky. And I was just reporting it because it had gotten very close to our aircraft, and I knew that there were other airplanes on that airway, right? So I was thinking, okay. So they said, well, we'll let them know. Well, I never got a call back, never got anything back. So when I was talking to an FAA guy that came to look at our aircraft and, you know, check us out, give us a ground check to see if we had our licenses and if the airplane was good to go, I just said something to him. And he wanted to know. And I go, well, we never heard anything about it back. He goes, you're kidding. I said, don't you think that if that's ours, they should have some sort of tracking on there so that we can get that on our system that identifies it, you know? And why wasn't, we were waiting to hear if they would warn the American Airlines airplane behind us, and I didn't hear anything. Did you see what I'm saying? I'm just being honest that these things are happening and nobody's given us any explanation. Okay, that's cool. All right. So let's go through this so that I can just completely fry your brain, and then we can get on to where we end up with this all, okay? You can have a rest if you want. Okay, so you might be able to understand this and explain this, but think about this. This is like the lowest level, but you can buy these on Amazon, and yet you look at it and you think, okay, I can't really explain what's happening here. And then as you look into it and you study it, then you say, okay, that's polarity and that's magnetism. And, you know, you have magnets and some attract and some repel. You know, we get that. But the stabilization of keeping that thing upright and then transferring current to it to light it, those kind of things, that gets really interesting, right? Okay, so we're used to, you know, fossil fuels, and this is the engine off of a 777, and this engine has multiple things going on here, and the air comes in, and then it has different areas of compression, and you can come up and look at this. Everything is very fragile, so I can't really touch and move everything, but this one actually, I built it and it works. But I must have had a hard landing, and it looks like I put it in the wrong place on the airplane. Anyway, oh, I see. Okay. All right, so that's the technology we have now. So if you can see, this thing is like a $20 million engine. You can live in this. It's so 777 is so big, you can live inside this engine. I wouldn't recommend it. But it has multiple stages of compression. So what happens is the air comes in, it's a high bypass, but air comes in, and it starts being compressed in these different stages, so they're counter rotating, and they compress. So the blades are shaped so that each compression stage, you got usually 3 or 4. Our airplane has less than this, but it has a couple stages up at front. Then you have a hot section in the center, which is where they introduce the fuel, and they make it an environment so that it'll explode. They atomize it, the fuel, spray it in there, and then they have compression, then they have explosion, and then they have more compression. It kind of comes back out the back. So when you think about it this way, you think about the contrast of 60 below up there. So like when we came in here, it was 66 below up there. So you have that much temperature difference, because you have 60 below centigrade, and then you have 700 degrees centigrade coming out the back. And our engines are 7 feet long, so it goes from 60 below to 500 or 600 above, in just that many feet, because that's our technology, right? That's the fossil fuel technology of compression and airflow and things like that. So airplanes, when you think of an airplane, you think of airflow over surface, and it creates the lift and the stability and the flight characteristics, right? So we know it that way. So this engine is like what you know, but I probably told most of you probably didn't know half of what I just said until now. So I was able to explain something to you that you didn't even understand about how a jet engine works. Okay, so the idea is that you compress air and you only route it a certain way. So it only has one choice, and that's out the back. So you bring it in there and you squeeze it and crush it and explode it, and you only allow it one way out, but the way out is so that it comes out hotter, faster than it came in. Okay, and the engine's designed to do that. This is magnificent. Okay, so you just need 2 of these to do a 777, right? Okay, so we understand that if like we have this, okay, there's certain things you're gonna need, right? Just like with a plane that has wings, you're gonna need airflow over it. Okay, but in a vacuum, like where they're in space, or where there is no gravity effect. If you negate gravity by a field, which you can do, then you become weightless. But not only that, you can get rid of drag. So the way these things work, which is probably going to get me in trouble, but the way that these things work is that the whole way around this craft is a leading edge. So it's a wing, but it's round. It doesn't need airflow like we think of airflow. The propulsion system essentially is of a higher levels of field like this. This is manipulating field. Does this bulb weigh anything? Well, obviously not, right? It does if you take it off there. But something is negating its weight. But not only that, it's so powerful that it's stabilizing it. Like, see, I tilted this, and it keeps spinning with that tilt. No matter what tilt I put it at, there is fields being manipulated that cause it to stay wherever I put it. It stays at that level, but it's still rotating. It's weightless, but it really weighs something, right? So there's something else going on that you're not seeing, but it's affecting the object. So science is really observation, right? So it's gathering data. So if you see something levitating, you observe that, you write the data, but see, you don't understand, maybe how it works unless you investigate. So you have to do things, to try to investigate it, manipulate it, take it apart, things like that. Okay, so if you have something that you have now in your house, like a phone, and you go back in time to the 1800s and you leave your phone on someone's desk and they find it, it's going to be the same thing, right? They're not going to know what this is for, where it came from, whose it is, what they're like. They're not going to understand the purpose of that phone. they're going to take it apart. They're going to try to do things to see, and they're going to discover. It'd probably take them 100 years to figure out your phone when your 5-year-old could figure it out for you. Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying is that if something's introduced to us that we don't understand, it appears to be supernatural, it appears to be, all these different things that we do. Okay, but as Christians, we've almost been framed as though like, well, that isn't of God. Well, it's too late. Like, this is innocent. This is not like hurting anybody. Now, you can take these fields at higher levels and project them towards people, which they do, and it'll paralyze you. And you'll actually feel like you're running into a wall, but it's this field where it is literally being weaponized. So then you got into lasers and beams and blue beams and frequencies that make clouds and make storms and stuff that you can put in the air that causes the air to be attracted to different fields and different beams. And if you have a blue roof and it's a blue beam, it doesn't burn the roof, but it burns every other color because that's the way the weapon is made. And so then you have a blue roof and you're fine. And so you have these weird things happen with fires, and the blue roofs survive it, the blue cars survive it, right? Don't look at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. So you can see, and of course I've seen the films of these blue beams coming out of the air during these fires. I just seen one film of it, the fires in North Carolina, the beams coming down and hitting. I flew by them and saw the fires, and I thought these things were targeted, because they do 2 of them. They do 2 side by side in this row. I thought that's from a satellite. But that doesn't exist, right? And, we don't need to concentrate on that, Kevin. We need to just concentrate on the Bible. So everybody has like a mentality of how they deal with things, right? The only thing is that what you don't know may hurt you. Like in other words, like if you don't know something but you could, and you find out that it was a liability, and you find out it was because you were negligent because you didn't ask questions. See, I don't want to know something I'm not supposed to know. But if I'm supposed to know it and it's anti-God, I want to expose it. And I want to expose it now before they can weaponize it. Okay, but what if it's us? What if it's technology that's classified and we don't want other countries to have it? Okay, so you can make up a narrative that it's from another planet. You can do all these kind of things to just protect the classified stuff, which is what we want. We don't want other countries to have it, and I'm all for that. The only thing is that I have observed these things. I have many stories. I could spend a week telling you stories of things I've seen. Now, why? While this is happening, I don't stop being a Christian. When those photos were taken, I didn't stop being a Christian. The Holy Spirit didn't leave me. I didn't rebuke the devil. It happened. Okay, it happened during my day, me going forth. The Lord had told me to lease that aircraft, to get my rating in that aircraft, to fly it with a certain other pilot and go to that place. We had an agenda. We had one-night meetings, and then we had places where we were filmed for the courses, for different courses that'll be coming out. So I was on my path, right? But during that path, these things crossed through. And they were things that the Lord didn't tell me about. They just happened, right? Okay, so they happen. Okay, you get sick, but you haven't done anything to be sick. You just get sick. So when you get sick, you think, I can't be sick. I can't miss work. My kids need me. And then you start thinking, okay, you start backtracking. So like as pilots, like when we're overseas, we don't order the same thing. We order different entrees. We figure out who's going to order what, and I order something else. Because if we get something that's bad, you don't want both pilots getting sick. Right? But I don't blame God for bad things that happen to me, because Job learned that lesson. In each paragraph, in each chapter of Job, all those bad things happened because Satan went and did things, but Job didn't know it. But it says in each paragraph, Job did not sin by blaming God. It says that. So that's the key to the whole book. I could save you time, you know. The whole idea was that God didn't do that, but he allowed it because he had more confidence in Job than he did in Satan's power. And he said, he picked the fight. Job didn't know that God had picked a fight using him. Do you understand that? And I don't know that Job ever knew until he went to heaven what really happened, right? But the fact of it was is that he doesn't have what we have, and yet he was able to rightly divide the truth and say, this was not God doing this. And his approach, he said, in all these things, Job did not sin by blaming God, right? So that was the whole idea. However, I was doing God's will, but this still happened, okay? So all of these pictures, I'm connected to a lot of this stuff in different ways. And I have, how many more? We have 50, 60 more displays like this of different cases that I was connected with, either directly or indirectly. And these are people that confided in me before they passed away. They led me to the right things. And so these things are coming out. Just so you know, they're coming out royally in the next couple months. In fact, they should be coming, some of it should be coming out this week. Okay, when this stuff comes out, you're gonna have to think in your mind that these are based on data that has been gathered and observation. Okay, so people that observe things, they see things that didn't happen. And you can ask a police officer this because you get reports and they all observed the same thing, but there was only maybe 3 that were coincided with each other out of the 8. Okay, so we have 28. We have hundreds of people that were involved with Roswell. Out of that, 28 people, I have their names. I'm not releasing all these names. I'm not doing any of that because there's other people who have done this groundwork and they need to get credit for it. So these people didn't want their names released, but these guys did release their names. But I don't want to do that. Okay, so all these people have names. They all worked at the positions confirmed in the military at the time of Roswell. We're just focusing on Roswell now for this week. So out of the 28, it's 28 deathbed confessions that are documented, that have been released. I just found them. Okay. Out of those 28, 8 of them coincide exactly with what you see up here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go quickly through this. The only reason I'm doing this is that you need to do this with everything. With everything. You need to find the bottom line because I'm telling you, the stuff that I know that's coming out today, you don't know what's coming out, but I already know. But I've known for a long time what really happened. But now I've been told what happened, but it's not been released, and now it's going to be released. Okay, so when it's released, all of you are going to have to process these things. Now, you cheer when I say some of the things that are going to be released. You cheered, right? You know, about the machines and election and things like that. Okay, because you already know that something was wrong, but you didn't have the data. Okay, the only thing is that when you find out the data, when I found out certain things, I wished I didn't know. And that's what President Trump told Eric Trump. He goes, you don't want me to release the JFK files. You don't want to know. But he did anyway, right? Okay, it's the same with UFOs. If they release what they know, and if they release the fact that they can't stop these things, do you really want to know that? Because you're paying tax dollars, and they're what? The government is to serve and protect, right? You know what's on the police cars? Serve and protect. Okay, so that's why you pay people. The people you send to represent you are to represent you to serve and protect you, right? Not steal from you or withhold information from you. So that's going to start coming out. It's already starting, but it's going to get really intense for the next few months. So I'm doing this maybe just as a one-off. This is maybe just one. That I do this morning, and I'm going to put it out, and I'm going to see how many intelligence agencies come to my house. No, I'm just kidding. No, so these people, I'm going to name some of them. I'm not focusing on all these guys over here as much as this storyline. So what happened here is we had a crash that happened. And you can take pictures of these if you want. But this is from the people that were there. So there were two maps, and you can see that a couple of things happened in the area of Roswell. What I want to tell you is that so that you know that stuff is going on in the other realm, is this: that for 72 hours, the people that were operating the radar in Alamogordo and all these areas in Roswell, those areas in that area, which is a hot spot because the 509th was part of the atomic weapons, right? And these things are attracted to the atomic material. So the two things they're attracted to, well, there's three, is where there's a lot of lightning strikes. So the one that happened in Phoenix, Arizona, I have friends that were there, that were actually there at that incident with Travis Walton. I mean, these are people that were there when it happened that I know. So I know what really happened. Okay, they found that these craft were surveying, because it's one of the highest lightning strike areas up there in the Mogollon Rim. And the crystals that are formed when it strikes the sandy ground there, that material is very valuable, I guess, but don't tell anybody. But they found that they're attracted to those things. They're attracted to power plants, but they are attracted to anything nuclear. So that's why you can't find the UFO information on the FOIA, because it's under the Department of Energy, which you're never going to break into that. So the DOE is where all of this stuff is, the Department of Energy, because it has to do with the nuclear material, because the propulsion systems have to do with that. Is anybody in here nervous? I'm sorry. I don't want you to lose your job. I'm just telling you that they're attracted to gold. So where there's storage of gold or crystals or atomic energy, they're attracted to that. So that's very interesting, right? All right, so that area is where the nuclear detonations were, where the bomb was developed, and that 509 was where it all started, right? And that's where the B-29s were that carried these things, okay? So for 72 hours, the guys that were interviewed before they passed, they said, we had 72 hours where we couldn't sleep. We had these craft that you see up here, these shapes, flying through the air for 72 hours and saturating the whole area. So a storm came in. They interviewed two nuns at the hospital there in Roswell, and they saw it explode in the air right there and fall. But there was two craft, so they don't know if they two collided or if one ejected from the other. Which this guy McDonald, he's the one that says that it was an ejection pod. Okay, so now the rest of it I'm just going to tell you because I just want you to be shocked. Because the thing of it is if Jesus Christ and his authority and everything that he's done for us, if it isn't enough that we can't deal with this, okay, because we're going to have to deal with it anyway, but I don't want somebody giving me the narrative. I've done the research, others have done the research, they have the interviews, they talked to the people and said, listen, this thing is a cover-up. So out of all the people, they have 28 that they got their testimony, and out of that 8 confirmed all of these drawings and helped him draw these drawings. So what happened was is that something happened right here. They were going so fast, like 3,000 miles an hour, either was hit by lightning or hit each other. It looks like this craft right here that crashed was like where the pilots were, was an escape pod. So I'm just telling you, these are people that I watched testify before they died. They said the craft where all the pieces were is metal that cannot be bent, cannot be drilled, had hieroglyphics on it. It was everywhere. And my friend said it was everywhere. He's got pieces of it. It wasn't a weather balloon. That is not the site where there were 2 bodies found in the desert. There was a place where this thing skipped for miles. When it would touch down, it would create this green glass. It was going so fast when it would touch every so many miles, and it skipped as it was crashing. It burnt the desert floor to glass. And then the big part of it exploded into pieces, but this craft was found with a slit in it, and there were pilots in it. But there were 2 bodies that were ejected many, many miles in between that. So there were 2 sites that you hear about, but they don't tie them together because the government doesn't want to do that, but it's all one thing. So my thing is this did happen, and you have the testimony of people that were there, and they said, they can't do anything to me now. And so even this person who did all this, he just passed away. And he was sick at the time they did the interviews. And I would, if you can handle it, I would you got to spend all day. It's 8 or 7 or 8 different interviews. But the guy's not lying. And the thing that is none of these people are. All these people are in the government, and they know the truth. Okay, so what happened was this guy, after he did the interviews, he went to test their models, and he made a model of it. And it's disappeared. I found this on eBay. 1 left. It's even in the shrink wrap. So they made it, and this is the actual craft. Okay, the only thing about this craft is I've seen classified projects fly by my airplane that look like this now. So the people that were there, all these guys are interviewed in their deathbeds, and so they come up with all this. They see the bodies, they did autopsies, they talked to the nurse. The nurse told everything, and then she disappeared. So this craft here is the one that you don't know about that happened. It came to rest in Corona, many, many miles away. It's the one that was like the ejection or the escape pod. So this is the one that had the pilots in it. But see, if you see these shapes, it looks like what was in Top Gun. So the Aurora project, and it became the Thunder Dart. So I bought the Thunder Dart model when it came out, and then they took that away. Because I actually saw one of those live fly underneath us when I was at Southwest Airlines. And when we called to ask what it was, they said it was a T-38, which is like this little yard dart airplane. And we're like, yeah, right. But it was the new thing that had replaced the SR-71. But the thing went right into space. We watched it go to where it was gone, and we tried to get our radar up to it, and it went past 60,000 feet, which you can't do without permission. And it was going 2 or 3 times as fast with these big engines in the back, but there's no contrail, there was nothing. There was no heat. I don't understand it. I somehow was able to control even the contrails, the way that the dispersed heat. It was not causing a trail when it should have been a trail there. All right, so these guys, these are all drawings. So that's what they looked like, okay? Now, when the autopsies come out, I listened to these people that testified. They said these were part human and part reptile. Now, that's a testimony of many people, not just one, not just the nurse, not just doctors. This is people who pulled them out of the craft. And so that, that's why I don't even want to do this. I'm doing this, it's probably a one-off, but I wanted to shock you because I want you to have so much faith in Jesus Christ that nothing shakes you, because the narrative is the people that have said things, they have led me, many people, even colonels, have told me that they had iguana skin, but they were part human. He even told me their nationality. These were children that were genetically altered. They no longer had a male or female. Their digestive system was just to take liquids. They were worker bees. They were literally just worker bees. They appeared to not even have a soul. They were just programmed to fly these craft. But they were part human, but they had scaly skin. This guy even identifies the exact reptile that they were. They have identified it exactly. I just don't want to say all this stuff. But you can look it up yourself, okay? I'm not trying to do a documentary here, even though it appears to be. What I want to do is I'm giving you an inoculation for what's coming preemptively so you can process this and take this to prayer, because this stuff did happen and all these men were involved in it. They were all involved in it. So there's a lot about these beings. They controlled the aircraft. It was connected to their brain. The craft was connected to all the pilots' brains. They all had sensors on their brain. And they used their hands. The two pilots in front, they only had 4 fingers, no thumbs. They put their fingers on plates, and they guided the craft by their touch and by the nose in their head. See, this is crazy. This is why I don't do this in church. Okay, but these are people that they found this stuff. Now, not only that, Colonel Corso, if you read his book, The Day After Roswell, it connects all this stuff because he was assigned to take all of this stuff, including the plates for the fingers. He saw the bodies, and then he was given all the electronics that were in there. The suits were made out of some sort of fabric that they call Kevlar now. So they were this type of material that they didn't know about. And then also the wiring was glass wires, and they gave it to Corning. Because it was through light, light through wires. So it was fly by light, which we now have. But we didn't used to have it. There were things in there that we developed, reverse engineer, they call it. Okay, so this has already happened. This is 1947. And this craft, if you look, and they were developing, so one of the guys I just want to pick on is Kelly Johnson, because he was contacted because of the airfoil. So what happened was they were developing the U-2 out at Area 51, Groom Lake, which was classified. It was CIA, and there was a spy agency, and that aircraft was spy. So when this craft was found, if you look at the years, okay, it took 10 years, but they developed a different platform called the A-12, which if you look at the way the wing and the fuselage is all blended together, it reminds you of that craft, that technology of that craft, and its curves, they called it a wave runner. So that aircraft was so efficient that Kelly Johnson took that material and took that plan form and started developing aircraft that way, and it became classified. Not only that, they got the metals, which were done in a vacuum. So a lot of this stuff was not formed in the atmosphere that we have. And it's not possible to make it, a lot of these metals with what we have. Some of it was cold fused, which means you chill it so cold that it boils and melts, and then you can fuse metals together, and these craft are done that way. So they kind of look like a swirl of different metals, but some of the things that are in, like the propulsion system, the material that's in there is not from this atmosphere, because it would not sustain in this atmosphere. Just like we can't make gold anymore. We can't up the isotope from lead to gold. But we used to be able to do that, but the atmosphere and everything has fallen, and it continues to deteriorate. So these things, as the Pentagon says, these beings have been here a long time, is what they say. They've been here a long time. So when you get into the math of this, which I'm not going to get into unless you want me to, but the bottom line is this, is that these things, we don't know at what time they're from. It's not a matter of what planet they're from. That's the rhetoric that even people that I know say it's not true. They're interdimensional. which time doesn't matter. Okay, so if you travel past the speed of light, you don't age, but the people that are observing you do. So I could go somewhere in one of these craft, but when I come back, I've been gone a minute, but Kathy's been waiting 50 years for me to come back from lunch. And we can't understand that with our minds. But I will stop here, even though I have a whole bunch more I want to show you. Gabe, can you come up here again? Okay, this is why, is that Jesus went to the belly of the earth, and he was held there for 3 days. In 3 days, he was risen from the dead. Okay, so that's amazing anyway. The only thing about that is that his body didn't have blood in it. He got up and he walked out, and it says that he even folded his cloth that he was wrapped in. I mean, he was a neat guy, Jesus is a neat freak, So he folded it up and he walked out, right? Okay, now think about this. We believe that. Why? Because we're Christians, right? But we can't even understand all this. We accept that. Why? Because that's our faith. Well, what is faith? My faith is not blind. Especially because I've met Jesus. But meeting Jesus made me a better Christian. But then I'm also accountable for more. Well, because it says, blessed are those who haven't seen him and yet believe, right? Okay, so I've seen him. But when I saw him, he was just like he was when he rose from the dead. He had a body. He literally had a body. So do you know that Elijah and Enoch, they still have their bodies? Does anybody ever think about this stuff? Okay, so we get in our car, that's solid, you make a left and you go left, right? And then the person beside you goes right and runs into you because that's the way it is. No, you have cause and effect, right? You're in a solid object and it's predictable and you do these things. You eat and you think, oh, I'm so full, I'll never eat again. And then 4 hours later, hey, what are we gonna eat, right? So the reason why is that we're made to adapt. But what if we have adapted to something we're not supposed to adapt to? Okay, what I'm saying is this, is that Jesus walked in and ate with them in a body with no blood. He preached for 40 days and no one stopped him. And the soldiers that guarded the tomb got fired. They wanted to fall on their sword when Paul walked out of the prison. So you can imagine what it was like for Jesus. Like, dear Lord, we just assigned you one simple thing. They can't explain it, right? But Jesus didn't even hurry so that he could get out of there before they wake up. He folded everything, probably ironed it, probably put a note for Mary. Hey, when you come here, I'm over, meet me at Buc-ee's or whatever, So think about it. He just kind of went and he did this thing, but we say, okay, well, that was Jesus. It's like, well, he sat with the disciples and he ate, and then he walked through a wall. And the food went with him, which it shouldn't if we're doing physics, right? If we're doing the physics that we've been taught. So what happened? What happened is that Jesus superseded all the laws because he could. And that's okay. But what about the demonic that is here, that is rogue, that is literally taken over the earth, the God of this world, right? The prince of the power of the air, right? Prince of the power of the air, prince of the heavenlies. The word there is the heavenlies. So we have demonic entities at different levels that Paul explains. And in the Geneva Bible, the King James left out the one translation that says that some of those entities intertwine with the kings of men, and King James took that out, but the Geneva Bible has it in it, and I guess that was detrimental to his re-election, so he didn't put that in there, right? Okay, so we have this idea that entities that are spiritual can intertwine with kings that are human, right? So what influenced King James to keep that out? Okay, so why did the King James, there's a woman who was a pastor. In Philippians, it mentions a woman who was a house church pastor, and they changed her name to a male name. Wow. Am I right, Pastor Mike? I might tell President Trump this. He'll be right on it, you know. No, think about that. Think about that. I found women listed in the Bible that were apostles, women that were prophets. They can't be pastors, but they can be evangelists and teachers and apostles and prophets. But they can't be pastors. So I want to talk to Paul and say, okay, Paul, what were you saying, right? Because there's all these other things. So a woman has to have long hair. Well, why? Well, because they shaved their head because if they were a prostitute in Corinth, okay? So you start looking at it that way. Okay, so we don't ask questions. We just say, okay, I can't be a pastor. Well, there's a good reason why Paul didn't want women to be pastors at that time, and it had to do with the condition of everything. I mean, if you remember, you women just became actually human beings and could vote 50 years ago. No, think about it. Women were excluded from everything, and they just became human not that long ago. And the same with different colors of skin. They weren't even human. They had to be separated. This is embarrassing. And then when I met Jesus, he had dark skin, and I was like, that's embarrassing. I can't mention that because he would blonde hair, blue eyes, and white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, WASP, and I thought he's not white. I'm not white. This is white. You can see it. It's not. So I got to thinking about, like, why do we believe what we believe? And Jesus he's not a white Jesus. I mean, he's Jewish. I mean, like dark golden brown. He could do a copper tone commercial. And I thought, he doesn't have blue eyes. I mean, the only thing I remember is fire. There's fire in his eyes. Okay, so how did the Jesus that walked this earth, died for you, rose from the dead, he preached for 40 days on the kingdom of God. No one could stop him. Herod didn't come and visit him. Pilate didn't come and visit him. The soldiers didn't visit him. But he roamed for 40 days and nobody did anything about it. He didn't have blood in his body. He was supposedly dead, and he's not. Okay, so then he hops on a cloud and goes into heaven, and the angels say, he's going to come back the same way you just saw him leave. Okay, so that all happened, right? Yeah. But think about what we argue about. We argue about the Trinity, but yet at the Jordan, Jesus walked in to the water, and he said, John, baptize me. So Jesus is there, and the Father, everyone heard it. He said, this is my Son, in whom I love, and I'm well pleased. Listen to him. Okay, so the Father spoke from heaven. Jesus didn't throw his voice. And what happened next? Oh, the third person of the Trinity shows up, like a dove, right? So the dove comes down, or whatever it was, form of a dove, and came on Jesus. So you have the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, but yet you don't believe in the Trinity. Okay, could it be that we don't understand the other dimensions? So an angel was sent by the Lord to kill 185,000 soldiers, the Assyrian soldiers that made God mad because they did something bad to Israel. So an angel, unnamed angel, slew 185 soldiers, and we have no problem with that, but that was an invisible sword. So if you interview all of those men, they would say, listen, man, that was a real sword, right? Okay, so am I generating some questions? Because
Absolutely.
So talk, please, just take this over. I want to quit.
It's crazy you mentioned the word napkin, Because in order to understand the significance of the folded napkin, you have to understand a little bit about Hebrew tradition of the day. The folded napkin had to do with the master and the servant. Every Jewish boy knows this tradition. When the servant set the dinner table for the master, he made sure that it was exactly the way the master wanted it. The table was furnished perfectly. The servant would wait just out of sight until the master had finished eating. Then the servant would not dare touch the table until the master was finished. Now, if the master was done eating, he would rise from the table, wipe his fingers, his mouth, clean his beard, and would wad up the napkin, toss it onto the table. The servant would then know to clear the table, for in those days the wadded napkin meant, I'm done, I'm finished, it's over. But if the master got up from the table, folded his napkin, and laid it beside his plate, the servant would not dare touch the table because the folded napkin meant, I'm coming back. He's coming back. The folded napkin that Jesus left for us implies how his resurrection was not actually the complete story. It was just the beginning, and he's coming back to finish it all up. He needed you to come to this earth, to bring heaven to earth, and finish what he started. You're the body of Christ. And as he comes back and fulfills his promise soon and very soon, we will then be with him. Why? It's a fellowship. It's a communion. It's a cohabitation with God. It's not a manipulation or control. Kevin, you talked about God giving us a free will. It's a relationship. God wants to do this together. He wants you to be with him when he comes back. And as we learn about these dimensions, and as we see the truth through the Word of God, instead of being manipulated by the news media and pulled aside by the fake news who wants to present an alternative solution, as we know the truth, we can walk in his power for us.
Amen.
And I just want to, side note too, the bodies, I just want to make a side note. I don't know if I should be saying this, but the wife of an FBI agent told me 2 years ago, she said, everything when you do the Bible studies is great. She said, my husband has said your Bible studies were great, but you started talking about the interbred creatures. You started talking about the Nephilim. And she said, and then you started talking about the bodies that were in the centers underneath that we have, and that's when you got a little too accurate. And basically the FBI has multiple locations with these non-human biological creatures that they are toying with, that they then take that technology, they then take what they learn of the non-humans, and then they think, how can we get this into humans?
Right.
So how can, sorry, I don't know if
No,
I should be saying
that's
this.
where you stop.
Okay.
So I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go. No, it's okay.
I'll take
it's
it.
just that I've gone as far as I want to go, because you go any further, then they're going to start throttling both of us. So they'll throttle us back. But anyway, these drawings were done by testimony of people on deathbed confessions that were there. They saw the cockpits, they saw this. A lot of these people like Curtis LeMay and all the people that are up here were involved with all this as far as implementing it. A lot of the agencies were formed after the Roswell. If you look at the origins of different agencies that were formed, it was formed because of this. And so one of the key ones was they separated the Army Air Force into Air Force and Army because they realized that they needed to protect the airspace. Okay, so my thing is I'm responsible for you. And the only reason I'm showing you this stuff is so that you start to ask questions and that you have answers for your children. Because yes, these entities were experiments. They're connected back to the Nazi scientists that they brought over here. I want to know why the 1,500 scientists escaped the Nuremberg trials. And that's all done, as we know, by Annie Jacobson. Annie Jacobs, she Pulitzer Prize winner. She documented all of that, and she has all their names. And they all became part of the different agencies, including, the nuclear energy part of this and these craft. So all these craft through many, many weeks I could do this and teach you. I can show you photographs of craft that were in the mountains in Nazi Germany. They take them down, but then they reappear. Those same craft appeared over here, and they're not UFOs. They're literally designs that I saw in those caverns when our troops went over there. And I know the people that were sent there. I got their names. And they're scientists for us, but they were sent over there to get all of that. They did the same thing with Iraq. When they had that archaeological digs over there and they found DNA of Nimrod, they went over there. Saddam Hussein claimed to be the 5th generation of Nebuchadnezzar, and he was rebuilding Babylon at the time. And I have pictures of the troops standing beside the buildings he was rebuilding. But the thing was, the artifacts they found there, they had to somehow get over there, and they created weapons of mass destruction. And my buddies were over there. These guys talked too much. They got in trouble, but they told me everything. And they were over there. They were special forces. They told me what they found. And we're in possession of all that now. This was all found that was left from the world that was before. So those pyramids, it didn't take a lot of work if those things are weightless. See, if you can negate gravity and weight, you can do whatever you want. These things could do those things. They had that ability, and they infiltrated man. And they became the small g gods, right? That we were the men of renown, it says. These things appeared to be supernatural, but there is scientific explanation for this. Just like with Jesus walking through a wall, there is a scientific explanation. We call it supernatural, and it is supernatural. But Jesus is operating in other dimensions. And aren't we, as born-again, Spirit-filled believers, aren't we new creations? Aren't we allowed at times to see the future, like the Holy Spirit was given to us to show us things to come, Jesus said? So why should this catch us by surprise? But I had a feeling that it was going to, so I spent the last 2 weeks, and Dallas was my target, and there it is. I want you to take pictures. I want you to research this stuff, and I want you to get ready for when they release stuff, because some of these people that are whistleblowers may not be telling you everything. They may be disinformation people, because, in those fields, especially that agency, they're also counterintelligence. And so they can release these men to talk, but have the narrative so it's coached a certain way. So if I were you, I encourage you to read John DeSouza's book. He was an FBI agent for 25 years. He contacted me. He is a Christian brother. And I promoted him, and he contacted me. He literally released the files to Hollywood to make programs to disseminate information. They called it the X-Files. That's all files from the FBI. Every show. So you should read his book, Interdimensionals, I think it's called. He's a Christian brother. And he said he might come sometime and talk. But he was 25 years working with the FBI, and he was dealing with this kind of thing where cases would go cold because people would literally be running and disappear, and they were all connected to the occult. And even even the weapons would disappear. And the cases would go cold. And so he developed his own little department where he would take these cases and he connected them to the occult. Now, you know that Nazis, all those scientists were hooked to the occult, right? You understand that I could name the witch that was assigned to them. It opened the portals. Right? You know that, right? So let's start the kids program. Gabe, thank you. I know he was awesome, wasn't he?
Could I share one last, just cool?
Sure.
Okay, if you look up the latitude of the Great Pyramids, in the decimal degrees, it's 29.9792458. Does that number sound familiar? Well, if you look up the speed of light, it's 299,792,458 miles per second. It matches. So the exact coordinates of the Great Pyramids are the exact speed of light over a couple decibels. That's just a really cool, yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. This guy's been studying. Okay. All right. So all of you, the way that you feel right now is on purpose. Okay, because I believe in the power of God. I believe in the supernatural. But I also know that in the last days, everybody in the Bible warned us about the last days of being very deceptive. And there would be lying signs and wonders, that there would be things that happening in the skies above. Signs and wonders, but they were false, right? And there was going to be people that claimed to be from God, but they were going to do false signs and wonders. They were going to have power. Okay, so I see this day, I see us being set up for this, and I know that there's been a delay. And I want us to concentrate on the resurrection power of Jesus Christ and Him only, to concentrate everything on Him. But I also don't want you to get washed out by Sasquatch and UFOs and things like that, when really you have to label them as being interdimensional, and they're either of God or they're not of God. Okay, and I understand a lot of things that could be said. I don't claim to be a scientist, and I don't claim to be a doctor. I want to just inform the body of Christ in a way where you're not intimidated by all the information. But I figured, would you agree that you could take pictures of these, you can look these people up, and you can read all these articles and all these, and you can do some study on your own, right? And that would be really good, wouldn't it? And it would help me out. And because you're going to get questions like that when you're on outreaches. They're going to say, well, what about what was just released about UFOs? And these things were our gods, they created us. Because that's what they're going to say. And you're not going to be able to have anything to really say about it, right? But now you will, because you were in Coffee Talk. And you can start to study, and I want to win the lost. I don't want people to be washed out. But it says that that deception in the last days will be so deceiving that even the very elect could be deceived, if that were even possible. And what did Jesus say? When I come back, will I find faith on the earth? Well, on my watch, He will, right? And on your watch, He will, right? Okay, so I just want to add that this was a psychological operation, right? I just did. The reason I did that is because I need you to ask questions about everything, not necessarily about what the Bible says. We know that what the Bible says is true, but how do we fit all this other thing, this peripheral stuff that's starting to infringe in our lives? Where the government doesn't have an explanation for it, but see, the church does. Amen?